Dan Campbell not getting enough love for Coach of the Year. There's your clickbait. Dan Campbell should be the NFL's Coach of the Year. Again, there are more things. There's a storyline that plays into it. But we heard Brad Holmes and Ray Agnew yesterday talk about this team, talk about training camp, talk about expectations going into the season. And he spent a couple minutes talking about Dan Campbell. And we've heard how close those two are, how their relationship is so tight, how they're in sync with like everything they do. But some things that Brad Holmes and Ray Agnew were saying, to me, it just doubled down on how important Dan Campbell is to this team. Let me just start before we get into it with this short clip. It's about 30 seconds. Brad Holmes just talking about Dan Campbell just being able to get the team ready, just the uniqueness of him during training camp, getting these guys ready for the season.
30 seconds of sickness.
Get down with this.
I thought Dan did a phenomenal job preparing the team and managing this camp. You know, I'm always in awe with him in terms of how he can put players in position to grow and develop, all while getting the team ready to go. And even when you say that word, getting them ready, it's a ton of work that goes into getting the team ready. So really, Dan and all the coaches, I just thought that they did a great job.
So there's nothing mind-blowing in that clip. I wanted to keep it short because there's nothing outrageous. But to me, you could hear in Brad Holmes' voice just how important Dan Campbell is. And when you talk about nowadays, too, getting a team ready for training camp, all the new rules, how it extends. I mean, this is training camp, but extends into spring, the OTAs, all the mini camps. With the dynamic of players and contracts and divas and not divas, like to get a team truly ready and to buy in for what Dan Campbell wants to do, hard hitting early in camp, so they're ready late in the season, all the things that are unique to Dan Campbell and what he brings to the table. There was just something about that. That was right at the beginning, and he said thank you to everybody, but like there was something about that just hit me again. It was like, all right, Dan Campbell even has this training camp down to a science, and everyone is bought in. That's what you need with the Super Bowl winner, a Super Bowl contender, Kool-Aid.
And it's not just that what made them a Super Bowl contender is not just how the people that were already here bought in, but how that message was almost put up into the air like a freaking bat signal, to the point that we had fun doing draft coverage, hearing players clamoring to be Detroit Lions, using all of the different keywords. We heard free agents that were out there like, you know what, I'm here because I know where this team can go. I'm here because of the types of coaches that they have here. And their reputation around this league, man. And with Dan Campbell, I'm going to say this. I believe that Dan Campbell should have been Coach of the Year last year. And I believe that the way that the playoffs played out, and I know that doesn't have a factor on who's Coach of the Year, I believe that it proved it, though. I do. And when you look at everything that this Detroit Lions team proved, I thought it would have been the perfect kind of cap for where this team has come from. You're talking about 3 wins, bro, to winning the division and being within 20 minutes, bro. And I could feel the pain in Lomas Brown's. I could feel the pain in Lomas Brown's voice when he was talking about it. 20 minutes away. They got that bad taste in their mouth. And I know this year is going to be that fuel. That fuel, man. That, you know what? No controlled octane. Just straight up burn everything. That's where I'm at with the Lions, man.
Yeah.
Dan Campbell.
Yeah, KG. To me, I don't think it's going to be easy for Dan Campbell to win Coach of the Year because I think you need a more of a story behind it of like overachieving your expectations or at least what national media thinks or the NFL thinks. Like it's probably going to be a team that goes from worst to first or like a Kevin Stefanski last year. But to me, KG, what gets overlooked, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, they came back. Because of Dan Campbell. This team with Super Bowl expectations is Dan Campbell. Terrell Williams came. Deshae Townsend came. Those things are all why Dan Campbell, as Super Bowl contenders, should still be in consideration for Coach of the Year. He's a smart offensive guy. He's a very smart offensive mind. But he knows as a head coach, he's got to put his priorities elsewhere. So he's over here like, all right, Ben Johnson, you go take care of Sean McVay. You go take care of Kyle Shanahan. Aaron Glenn, you go take care of that. Like, he's so savvy enough to put the smart people around him to take care of the things that he just can't control right now. He's working on building this culture, building this team. But things he does, man, this team is Dan Campbell.
No, for sure. And I don't expect the national spotlight to necessarily get that because we see everything that Dan Campbell has done, even down to the people that he got rid of, like Anthony Lynn, who was a friend and an established coach in this league. He ended up getting rid of him for Ben Johnson. Aubrey Pleasant firing, and then a hometown favorite in Dre Bly getting fired. Now bringing in Terrell Williams and Deshae Townsend. So, I mean, Dan Campbell knows how to make the hard decisions at the right times, and he's always come out on the other side of it. But, I mean, last year would have been his best chance. I mean, last year, I think the reason he didn't get it last year is because they did have expectations to take a jump in wins, to win the division. Of course, they won more than one playoff game, and that was great. But overall, I think, the NFL have just missed the boat on Dan Campbell. I don't know, even if he's successful, that they'll round back and give it to him. But that doesn't matter. We know the type of coach we have. Yeah. And Dan Campbell has improved every single year. It's all good, man. We're going to be okay. We know Dan Campbell is one of the top coaches in the league. And, we know what we got.
Yeah, and I think you said it best there, too, that the national media, they're not truly keyed in as we are. And that's why Woodward Sports exists.
We here.
It's our job to be that megaphone that goes out there and shouts it everywhere it can be heard. Because to me, I'm sorry, bro, who's the only contender to not lose any back-to-back games last year? That was our Detroit Lions. Yep. How do you coach that up from a mental perspective? That's having your guys ready. And in the games, as you analyze down the stretch that they did lose, bro, you can start to actually poke holes in that too. The Cowboys game, the injuries that they were battling on the short week against the Packers. Man, and I get it. I believe if he win one of those games, it's probably a slam dunk for Dan Campbell with Coach of the Year for the national media, because they're not understanding what he was doing. Think about who was playing in the second half, man. In the freaking secondary. We're talking about Jerry Jacobs and Kendall Vildor. And they were raking in the second half. I don't think that people are actually, when you talk about Dan Campbell, Coach of the Year, zooming in on what they were actually relying on Jameson Williams second half of the season. Where a lot of people said that he's not anything. A bunch of rookies. Trusting rookies, bro. How do these rookies go from where they are to either all-pro or borderline all-pro?
Yeah.
Dan Campbell, it's whatever these guys, whatever their culture is. Like bringing a guy in like Terrell Williams, what makes them say, you know what, that's the place I want to be?
It's Dan Campbell.
It's Dan Campbell.
You brought up a good point. I always use it, when Easy and I go back and forth on Jared Goff and our little pizza bet of Jared Goff getting one top 5 MVP vote. I always said, all right, if they won that Dallas Cowboys game, we're talking about 14-3, first seed in the NFC.
It looks so
that
much
would get
different.
him a vote. I'm sure of it.
Absolutely.
But Dan Campbell, if you're talking about the Lions in year 3 being the number 1 seed in the NFC, if Brad Allen doesn't screw that up,
right?
We're talking about him being Coach of the Year. Probably. And yes, part of that problem, and I think part of what at least maybe voters, national media probably factors against him is that aggressive mentality, going for it on 4th down. Yeah, you shouldn't have gone for 2 on the 7.5-yard line. That was a little bit emotional. But he has his team totally bought into his strategy of being aggressive, that controlled fury. And Brad Holmes talked about it yesterday in this press conference. Said they haven't had that specific conversation, but they're in lockstep of how they want to approach this game and, JB, stay ahead of the bar. Be innovative. Do those new things. Listen to this short clip, about 40 seconds long, 47 seconds of Brad Holmes talking about this.
We're very much in alignment that we are, if you want to call it, aggressively smart, or you probably have heard Dan say in the past, controlled aggression or calculated aggression. Whether that's him coaching the team. That's how we build the roster. I think that we do it in an aggressive way, but it's calculated, and so we're not just kind of just taking shots just to take shots. I do think that in this league, I've always said if you're current, you're behind, and so if you don't have a sense of aggressiveness in some capacity, then you might be coming up short.
And that's why I know it's going to be difficult for Dan Campbell to win Coach of the Year, even if the Lions have a fantastic season. It's going to be difficult for him facing those odds. But But everything that you hear about who Dan Campbell is, everything that we've learned about him is exactly why I believe he is that guy. This is a city that we know is going to get dismissed. We've seen the Lions get dismissed for so many years. You have to have an individual that can rise above that and that can motivate his guys to play, even if you face loss, even if you get hosed by the referees, even if you think, even if coming back from injury. You know what I mean? Dan Campbell has been a master motivator, somebody that we liked and that I like personally. And Coach Caldwell, they said he was the leader of men. And I thought, though, that there were certain aspects of it that he didn't quite get right. And I believe that Dan Campbell is that coach that's kind of pulled everything together. He's gotten his coordinators right. He's gotten the positional coaches right. He's gotten the players to buy in by being as authentic as possible. Man, you see other players out there, former players, media people, when they see these clips of Dan Campbell on the HBO shows and all that type of stuff, they're like, yo, who wouldn't want to play for this guy? I'm watching them like, man, yeah, I'm ready, Dan. I'm ready. Put the pads on. Let's go. That's Dan Campbell, man. And that's why I'm saying, like, we get it. He might not win Coach of the Year, but he's not a guy that's looking over his shoulder for it either.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
Ahead for a Super Bowl, and that's all that's in his vision, bro. Marching down Woodward is all that matters to Dan Campbell.
All that matters. Mm-hmm. Roster construction, how they practice, how they play. His aggression, they game plan for that. Ben Johnson calls third down plays knowing they're going for it. We're talking about the best, one of the best, if not this year, the best offense in the NFL. You get 4 downs to stop them going 10 yards. Good luck. Good luck. That's why Isaiah Williams was the 4th wide receiver, and they didn't decide to just, Brad Holmes talked about it, just give a roster spot away to a 5th wide receiver because they have a big body. No. They want the best guys on the field. Whether they're an undrafted free agent rookie or whether they're Allen Robinson, who's been in the league for 10 years making $100 million. It doesn't matter. Isaiah Williams gives them the best chance to get a first down. We all know Jared Goff can throw it within 10 yards. No one can slander that. That's why Isaiah Williams is on. Also, go watch this whole press conference because it's really good. Brad Holmes and Ray Agnew, Executive Vice President and General Manager Brad Holmes, Assistant General Manager Ray Agnew. One thing we're not talking about today, he had a really great comment about Isaiah Williams as someone they were really, really close to drafting. They wanted during the draft. So they look at this as like stealing a draft pick. They only had X amount, but they got another draft pick when they were able to sign Isaiah Williams for $240K. As a UDFA, he's now their number 4 wide receiver and is going to contribute, that's right, a UDFA going to contribute to a Super Bowl contender. It's not normal. He's one of 3. That's not normal.